Ah, so you've come to hear a story, have you? Settle yourself then. The grass is cool, and the wind is kind tonight. I am but a humble hare, quick of foot but slower of judgment. And in my wanderings through fields and forests, I have seen far more of the doings of creatures, both furred and feathered, than any sensible hare ought to see. We animals, live quieter lives than humans, yet our world hums with secrets, quarrels, friendships, and the occasional bit of foolishness that would make even an owl laugh. The tale I'm about to share was not witnessed by my own two eyes, but passed from whisker to whisker, from burrow to hedgerow, and finally to my long ears. And I in turn offer it to you. Listen closely, for though our paws leave only the lightest prints upon the earth, our stories run deeper than any human imagines. The life and philosophical opinions of a penguin. Must one seek for happiness? I inquired of the hare. Seek, replied he, but with fear and trembling. The anonymous bird, had I not been born in the extreme south beneath the rays of a burning sun, rays which helped to liberate me from my shell and were as necessary to me as the brave penguin who abandoned me to fate, I might have proved a happier bird. But being, as I said, hatched under a tropic sun rather than a lucky star, I became an unhappy one. I had a hard struggle to get into the world, for my shell was uncommonly thick. When at last I found my way into the light, I stood for some time gazing at my late prison with feelings not unmixed with surprise at the event which had introduced me to freedom. One, of course, has only a confused remembrance of those early days and can hardly be expected to give a full account of the sudden change implied in birth. I have heard it said that when men are born, some of them smile blandly on the prospects life presents, while others, the majority, begin life with a wail of regret, the prophetic note of a sorrowful existence. Be that as it may, I remember that as soon as I could reflect, I wondered how uncomfortable I must have felt, doubled up in a shell, too contracted to admit of motion. The change was appalling. There lay the shell, my first world, first filled and broken, leaving me a mean tenant of immeasurable space. The prospect puzzled and hardly pleased me. I had exchanged my little egg for one boundless in infinity. Far from being modest, my first notion was that all I saw belonged to me, and that the sole purpose of the earth was to contribute to my support. Forgive the infantile pride of a poor penguin, who, as the years rolled on, learned humility. As soon as I discovered the use of my eyes, I found myself alone in the hollow of a great rock overlooking the sea, rocks, stones, water, a boundless horizon, immensity, and myself nothing more than an atom. Why is the universe so large? I asked, and the echo from my empty shell answered, why? A question asked before and never conclusively answered. A small world, quite a small one, filled only by those devoted to each other's welfare, would have suited me better than this vast gulf where all seems lost and confusion reigns, where there is space enough not only for creatures who detest each other, but for nations whose conflicting interests cause endless strife, giving full play to crime and passion. Penguins in general, and you, my friends, would not a world framed for ourselves have been better? A world with one low mountain bathed in sunlight, a tiny leafy plain bordering the sea, carpeted with flowers and shaded by fruit-bearing trees, where a score of social birds might build their nests, birds decked with gay plumage and bursting with song, unlike the poor penguin whose lines you are now reading. These are vain imaginings. There is no such paradise for penguins or any other creatures. There are fields and flowers, birds of bright plumage, others of song, but the wide world shares their charms. Flowers here, fruits there, scattered and dispersed for the sport and pleasure of mankind. Man alone enslaves nature, gathering its gifts to make his mansions musical with nightingales, his lawns gay with flowers, and his orchards glorious with fruit. Again I crave pardon, dear reader. Solitude has rendered me gloomy, and I forget myself, forgetting my humble lot and obscure destiny. My early isolation and ignorance tempted me to brood over the unattainable. Nevertheless, I claim credit for self-denial in pruning my introduction, for I might have dwelt at length on the miseries of solitude, misery unusually prolific. It is so soothing to complain, so comforting indeed as to pass for real happiness. I had not lived a day before I learned what heat and cold were. The sun disappeared, leaving my rock cold as an iceberg. Having nothing to do, I began to move, and felt about my shoulders something I conceived must be intended for use. Stretching forth these little arms or wings with which nature had endowed me, she has lived too long on her reputation of being a good mother. After prolonged effort, I succeeded in rolling from the top of my rock. Thus my first experience in life was a fall, which I resented by digging my beak into the unsympathetic soil. This only increased my pain and led me to reflect. It is evident, I said, that one ought to be careful about one's first step in life and reflect well before moving. I then pondered over my destiny as a penguin. Not that I had any pretensions to philosophy, but when one is forced to live, one must devise some rules. What is good? What is evil? What is life? What is a penguin? Before I could answer these questions, my eyelids closed in sleep. Hunger rudely awoke me. Forgetting my resolutions, strange as it seems, I did not stop to inquire what hunger was, but immediately sought to satisfy it by eating some shellfish yawning before me. I ought first to have considered the possible danger of following this ancient custom. My inexperience was punished, for in eating too fast I nearly choked. I have no notion how I learned to eat, drink, walk, turn right or left, measure distance, understand that all one sees is not one's own, to climb down and ascend, to swim, fish, sleep standing, and content myself with little or nothing. It is enough to say that each of these studies brought countless troubles, fabulous misadventures, and unheard of trials. What are our duties in the world? What will become of penguins? Where do we go after death? Why were some birds created without feathers, some fish without fins, some animals without feet? My worldly experience often tempted me to wish myself back in my egg. One day, after profound reflection, I fell asleep, and during my repose heard a noise, neither that of waves nor any familiar sound. "Wake up!" said the active part of my being, the part that never slumbers and stands guard like an angel. "Wake and behold something to rouse your curiosity." "Certainly not," replied the other part, excellent but fond of sleep. "I am not curious. I have seen too much already." Still the first insisted. I protested. It would be wrong to break my slumber for anything spurious. The sound has gone. It was a dream. Let me sleep. I tried stubbornly to sleep, but in vain. I woke, and what I saw reduced me to utter insignificance. Before me were a dozen charming creatures, some floating in midair with expanded wings, others diving into waves, then rising to flash their snow-white plumage in the sun. Surely, I thought, these are beings from a happier, more perfect world. Carried away by youth and admiration, I rushed into their midst. Celestial birds, fairies of the air. "A penguin!" cried one. "A penguin!" echoed the rest. They laughed, and I mistook their laughter for pleasure in my presence. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said boldly, "you are right. I am a penguin, and the fairest forms I have seen since leaving my shell. I should like to join your sport." "Penguin," said the first who addressed me, a queenly creature, though only a laughing gull, "you do not know what you ask, but experience is the best teacher." She flipped me with her wing. Another did the same. Soon all joined in, flipping me about until I felt thoroughly humbled and exhausted. The gull, seeing my prostration, heartfelt remorse. Forgive us, my poor penguin. You do not relish our rollicking style, but it is our nature. Do not blame us if you are hurt. She looked at me so tenderly that, despite her treatment, she seemed beautiful and good. But pity is often but self-love, and as soon as I revived, she flew away with her companions. Again I was alone, and from that moment solitude became insupportable. I was blindly in love, and furious that I had done nothing to win such a bride. Why had I not shown my charms? Wandering to a quiet pool to cool my fevered beak, I beheld my own image, and nearly choked at the sight of my ungainly proportions. Yet vanity soon banished the impression. Sleepless nights and miserable days followed. The sea alone gave solace. Its mournful voice soothed my sadness. Let the reader not smile at my unpoetic shape. God has framed the world so that in the rudest forms repose the sublimest attributes. Human genius seldom inhabits Herculean bodies. The sentiment of a lovesick penguin cannot be judged by its stout frame. Suspense is intolerable. I can bear it no longer, I cried, and cast myself into the sea to drown my sorrow. Unfortunately, I discovered how to swim. My history, therefore, does not end here. Rising to the surface, one always rises several times before drowning. I resumed my habit of soliloquy. What right had I to destroy myself? Would the world be one penguin worse off? My soliloquy was long. I drifted many leagues, diving again and again with the intent of remaining below, yet always resurfacing, for the air seemed wonderfully refreshing after each dip. On my seventh failed attempt, I rose beside a creature whose simple, unaffected manner won my heart instantly. What were you doing below, Mr. Penguin? And where are you going? He asked, bowing profoundly. I hardly know, I replied. Well then, said he, suppose we go together. I agreed and told him my misfortunes. Have you formed any plans for the future? He asked. No, though I half intend to travel in search of the gull. How came you to love a gull? Why not love one of your own kind? The gull would only bring grief. Feather-puffed and ever on the wing, she would desert you for one of her own. There is no accounting for love, I said. Ah, said he, love is language, a strong light, this light of love, and leaving somewhere a shadow of pitchy darkness, has it not? My story has stirred memories, I said gently. He ascended a rock in silence, and I followed. Who are you? I asked at last. I am of the palmy family, he replied, and my name is Fool. You fool? Impossible. Yes, I am so named for minding others' affairs and neglecting my own, but sinking myself. What can I do for you, my friend? Listen, not far from here lies the Isle of Penguins. It is inhabited entirely by birds of your tribe. They are all equally ugly. Go there. You may even be thought handsome. Am I then so unsightly? Yes. You are as unlike the gull as the grub is unlike the butterfly. During our voyage, a severe storm burst upon us. We rode the billows tranquilly while great ships, freighted with wealth, were wrecked before our eyes. Pitiful were the cries of the perishing, men and women who sought happier shores or riches never to be enjoyed. At last we reached the shores of the happy island. Let us pause, said my sage companion, and note the native method of pursuing that myth. Earthly happiness. Shaking ourselves dry, he took our position from the sun. To our surprise, though we had taken advantage of every slant of wind to push ahead, we had reached land 100 miles astern of where we began. Men and mules often go backwards as often as forwards without knowing it. This island, said he, is unknown, not on any map. Our observations will therefore be of use. We went inland. This is neither Peru nor the penguin's paradise, said the fool. The name deceives you. It is called Happy Island because its inhabitants inherit a furious desire for happiness, not because they are happy. They chase a phantom, and when it seems nearest, they are swallowed by the grave. We inspected a mansion where pleasure seekers gathered. Above the door we read, "Here we are, 400 of us, all happy. Beneath, neutralize the influence of parents upon children, and all will go well." Inside were mothers refusing to sit on their eggs, weasels and adders watching them, wolves eating the young to keep them out of harm's way. In the schoolroom, boars lay rolling lazily, oxen abandoned the plow, camels tried to make others carry their humps. All were dull and yawning. A monkey nursed his knee, attempting to reflect. "Are these creatures happy?" I asked. "I fear not," he answered. Passing a blacksmith fitting carpet slippers to a horse, I said, "I have seen enough of Happy Island. Let us continue our voyage." Penguin Island. 2 days later, we reached Penguin Island. I saw 200 penguins standing in battle array along the shore. "Fear nothing," said my friend. "This is their custom." We were led to an old Firmiscus, the king. He sat on a stone throne, surrounded by subjects. "Illustrious strangers," he said, "we are delighted to make your acquaintance." I responded politely, and my sage companion whispered, "Careful, you will die diplomatist." The king, pleased, embraced me. "Young and honest," he said, "remain with me in my old age." "Sire," I said, "I will gladly accept." "Are you married?" he asked. "No, your majesty, a bachelor," cried the ladies, gazing at me for the first time. "Hush," said the king. "We have cured worse maladies. There is my daughter, but sire, my heart belongs to another. That is modesty. You shall wed my daughter. It is a matter of privilege, not of heart." I was speechless. "He who says nothing consents," declared the king. My eyes met those of the princess. A momentary glance, and fate was sealed. "Well," said the king, "is she not lovely? Not a single subject boasts smaller eyes, yellower beak, rounder form, or larger feet. She is beautiful." The wedding was arranged, and we were married in great state. I might finish here, but as I have gone so far, I may as well relate the bitter end. I dreamed one night that I beheld my first love, and that she beckoned to me to follow her. The whole scene was so vivid that when I awoke, I felt I could recognize the spot if it existed in any part of the earth. In a weak moment, I resolved to start in search of this heaven and its goddess. At last, I left the penguin shore, ostensibly on a diplomatic mission. For 2 whole years, I searched the world over, but in vain, until, just as I was giving up hope, I discovered the object of my solicitude on a sandbank, stooping over the filthy remains of a stranded whale in the society of a ragged, vicious-looking cormorant, the meanest of birds. This, then, was the gull of my dreams, the spirit of the air, the ideal of beauty, the peri, the sylph whose seductive image had cursed my life. My eyes opened, but too late, to discover how the fool mistakes the glitter of the basest metal for the luster of pure gold. What would I not have given to crush the memory of my folly out of my heart, to begin life anew and ponder well the first false steps? Yet I reflected, all may be well. Better far the bitterest truth than the sweetest falsehood. Setting sail for Penguin Island, I resolved never again to quit its shore and to become a good husband, father, and prince. On landing, I first visited the people, who were well next my father-in-law, who, thank God, was better than the people. I then began to look for my dear wife and child, and good heavens, I found my family had increased to 4. My wife, poor soul, had taken another husband, thinking I had deserted her. I at once repaired to my old friend and traveling companion, whose ability the king had sought to reward by making him prime minister, but he refused to add to his cares that of office, and retired to live as a hermit on the top of a rock. He had chosen the highest rock in the realm, whence, far above the turmoil of the state, he bent his philosophic gaze on the lower world, which he had abandoned to its fate. I felt much in need of sympathy and advice. After recounting my woes, The answer of the recluse sent a thrill of despair through my heart. "Bah," he said, "I am sick of all the affairs of life. Each hour wounds, but happily the last kills us. Forget your troubles. Arm your heart against the malignant influences that mar the peace of brutes and men. Why the devil should you be happy? He was a profane bird. What have you done to merit happiness? How fared you in your journey? Have you seen enough of the world? Sinned too much? Ha! Ha! Is your punishment greater than you can bear? Poor deluded penguin! You have been the football of our old enemy fate. It must have been great fun for the old rascal to mark your abortive attempts at heavenward flight with those half-formed wings. Ha! Ha! What a capital joke! You seem merry, my friend, said I. Your levity wounds me deeply. Listen, my child, he replied. You have spent the best of your days in vain pursuit of the unattainable. Depend upon it. The nearest approach to happiness is found in paths obscure and humble, paths of duty along which kind Providence will ever act as our guide. You puzzle me, I remarked. Your language is as changeable as English weather. At one moment you are a wicked bird, at another a moral philosopher. Nay, friend, he said, these are but the passing moods of the mind. I am told that men as well as birds have their moods. Even some most religious men, they tell me, wear a somber cloak to conceal the sinful thoughts that are always present with them. They resemble the shells they employ in warfare, harmless enough until thrown to the ground by some sudden shock of passion which fires the fuse and destroys them. It seems to me, in order to succeed in the pursuit of happiness, you must prefer clouds to sunshine, rain to fair weather, grief to joy. You must possess nothing, and yet find yourself too rich. Take all that is done as well done, all that is said as well said. Believe nothing, and yet know everything. Dream while you are living. Live in your dreams. After all, when you feel really happy, have patience, and time will surely destroy the illusion. Here the philosopher paused for breath. If you are unhappy, let me counsel you to take warning from the life of a poor penguin who blighted his hopes by worshipping at the shrine of a false goddess.